Hey, before we start today's show, I just wanted to take a second and thank the official Foot Clan over at jointhefoot.com for everything you do to make the show what it is. If you want to get involved, extra episodes, all the things we're doing over at jointhefoot.com, head over there and get involved.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the party.
Wait, didn't we just have an episode yesterday?
Weird.
Yeah, it's Tuesday. I'm not supposed to be here.
That's impossible. We have a completely different set.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
It's a nice-looking jersey on the wall.
Yeah, we did that quickly. Antonio Brown won the jersey competition, and there is a Bumblebee Antonio Brown jersey on the wall. Mike got it from Pristine Auction.
I certainly did. It is gorgeous.
It is. It's a nice-looking jersey.
The Bumblebee jersey is very split in the football community. A lot of people hate that jersey. And I say, you're a fool.
Oh,
wow.
He's
That's
calling
very
you
bold.
out.
Yeah, because, I can call them out as complete and utter idiots
What?
because
What?
I used to hate the jersey. So I'm like, you could call out somebody that
So you're saying you were an idiot.
I was an absolute idiot because that is a sweet, awesome-looking jersey.
Strong jersey opinions
Yeah.
here today.
You wouldn't want it for 16 games, but
That's
As a
hot-
special
hot
jersey?
it's special.
I love the Bumblebee jersey.
Yeah, dude.
Which
I
is
love it.
surprising because you hate bees.
And you're an
Oh,
idiot, so I
yes.
don't get it.
Yes, yes. Both things are very. Wait.
What? Moving along.
Today is Tuesday, August 2nd. This is the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. We are back again, and this is a great episode. We are going to break down our top running backs, the running back episode. We'll get through as many as we possibly can today. There'll be another running back show as well as we go through our top names, the consensus top 10, which will honestly open a lot of debate up because even though these are our consensus top 10, I know that we each have some strong opinions about different guys. And the running back position, we all know this, it is a stalwart of your fantasy team. The scarcity of top-tier, high-volume, productive fantasy running backs, the ability to predict that can have a big impact on how your fantasy team does in 2016. And so we're going to break down the running back position today, get into a little bit of the news. I want to make a quick announcement about the Listener League. We're cutting off the deadline to send in your submission to the Listener League is going to be this Friday, August 5th. After that, we're going to pick the Listener League winners. We've had some amazing entries.
Oh,
You can send them in to listenerleague@fantasyfootballers.com.
I mean, a genuine thank you for all of the effort put in. It's amazing, the entries that have come in, some heartfelt things, some funny things, some amazing things. I wish we could have 700 people.
All the things.
All the things. So that is the deadline. Here's the quick question of the day. This one comes in from @DavidSnyder_. Whose ADP do you think will climb the most between now and week 1?
Oh, I'll answer first so that I can get everyone's answer, which is Arian Foster. Arian Foster
that's a
will
great answer.
absolutely be the guy who rises up the draft boards more and more. If he's playing, if he's healthy, and right now he's practicing. I think we'll talk about this in the news. He's taking all the first team reps right now with Jay Ajayi.
Not all of them.
Well, he's with Jay Ajayi out. He is
Adam
running
Gase,
with the ones.
Adam Gase said he would be taking all the.
He
all
will
the,
be. Just clarifying that the reports were that Foster took a couple and Kenyon Drake has
Yes.
been getting a lot of work.
and that Kenyon Drake is struggling massively.
Is he?
That's
I missed that.
I saw another report about him.
No,
struggling.
not Kenyon.
He's really struggling. I want to thank everybody out there, by the way, that is spamming me with Nelson Aguilar comments.
Yes.
Mostly Jason. Jason decided to go out on a limb and use his own Twitter to facilitate the Nelson Aguilar. I saw that.
That doesn't sound like
said-
Jason.
I
you
would
said-
never do such a thing.
Yeah. So, thank you for that. My guy, I think you're right. I think that's the right answer. Arian Foster's the right answer. I'll pick a different name. Another guy I think will jump up is Josh Gordon. I think Josh Gordon, just the sheer talent alone, he's in the 7th round. I think he'll move up quite a bit. Probably be in the 4th, 5th round by the time we get around to the regular season. Just the opportunity for people to go up and grab a guy that has finished first in even though he's a Cleveland Brown, he's finished first at the wide receiver position. That's a guy whose name will climb. I like Arian, though. I think that'll climb a lot more.
Yeah, I think both of those are great climber names. I'm just going to give you a name that I want to see what the actual climb turns into, and that is Eric Decker. the wide receiver 2 for the New York Jets, because typically, although he's been just an absolute dominant force for fantasy football, people just never seem to respect Eric Decker for fantasy purposes. Right now, he's at the back of the 5th. And now that Ryan Fitzpatrick is back, and I think that the Warriors will calm down a bit about Decker, what will the casual player do now with Decker? Will he make it into the 4th?
No. In fact, he will drop from where he's at now.
Oh, no.
That's my guess, and I mean that genuinely. He's getting a huge Ryan Fitzpatrick bump right now, right? The news is out.
Beard
and so
bump.
you go, he's worth more than where he was, and so you bump him up. But as time goes on and we get closer to drafts, every year people undervalue Eric Decker. They don't like a wide receiver 2. They don't think he's a good enough guy. There's flashier options. And so I don't think he's going to climb higher than he is now, but is definitely worth seeing.
It's funny. You remember how much – so DeAndre Hopkins, right? He was a stud last year, but he finished like last among qualifying wide receivers in yards after the catch. He was like 1.8 yard after the catch. Decker was third to last. He was actually he was 2.8 after the catch out of qualified wide receivers. That doesn't actually make me fade him at all.
No.
I feel like that number is as low as you're going to get. He is touchdown dependent, but he's going to score a lot of touchdowns because he just averages almost more than anybody in the league in terms of scoring touchdowns. I think he deserves respect. He has my respect this year.
I think he's got unanimous respect of the ballers.
He's finally earned it. That wide receiver 2 scarlet letter he's been wearing, he finally earned it. All right, if you want to connect with us, head over to jointhefoot.com, get involved in the community. You can go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. We have a ton of free resources on there. All of our rankings are on there that we're talking through today, the running backs and every other position. We have a bunch of articles, including a really good auction article that went up there that a lot of good feedback has been coming through for auction. They know we don't talk a lot of auction on the show. So they really enjoyed the fact we had some auction articles on the website, especially for those starting off in auction leagues. And you can also check us out on YouTube and the Fantasy Sports Network, on Facebook, and everywhere else that the internet is.
The internet is everywhere.
Yeah. Do you ever see that old Norm Macdonald show? That sitcom that lasted about 5 episodes?
The Norm Show?
Yeah, the Norm Show.
Norm Macdonald is in my top 5 comedians of all time.
Wow.
I love
He's very
Norm
funny.
Macdonald.
There was a really
Oh,
funny
man, I love
episode
him.
where his crotchety old boss was mad that everyone was on the internet a lot. And so he's like, no more internet for everybody. And Norm Macdonald walks out with a floppy disk, and he goes, oh, man, here you go. And he hands him the floppy disk, and he's like, and the guy holds it up, and he's like, no more internet for anyone. And he walks off to put it away. So that's really funny. All right, let's jump into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
Not enough Norm Macdonald talk.
You want to talk Norm
Should we
Macdonald?
deliver
I'm your guy.
Should you deliver the news and notes as old Saturday Night
Well, you know
Live
what's-
update?
What's really funny is every once in a while, if I want to review a show, it's, how did the show go? I will hear myself do Norm Macdonald inflections.
Yeah, he had a unique way of delivering the news. So, speaking of news, John Brown, Zach Miller, Eddie Royal, all in the concussion protocol right now.
Yeah.
So that's just something
an update.
that happened and will happen more. Let's talk about Davante Adams, and let's break down the fun coach speak, reporter speak competition. We have one reporter, Ryan Wood of the Green Bay Press-Gazette, saying he's had a, quote, rough camp so far. And then he also
That was right after Packers reporter Bill Huber had said that Adams is catching everything.
Yeah, literally.
What are they watching?
Right after.
I don't know. So
What it is it's good perspective to say that these are two guys who follow this team who were watching the exact same thing, and they walked away with completely differing opinions on Davante Adams. And so when you only see one report saying, oh, man, this guy's lighting it up or this guy's a bum, you can't just take that as, written on stone. A lot of times,
we saw it with David Johnson and Chris Johnson reports out of Arizona.
yes.
right? Well,
with two different reporters, and then, David Johnson took every first-team rep yesterday.
Yes, he did, which is great news for anybody that has him ranked high. Not knowing whether we do or not, we'll see in a few minutes.
The Lions RB coach said the team doesn't, quote, need a 1,000-yard rusher, which is great because I don't think they will, quote, have a 1,000-yard rusher this season. But that is worth monitoring because I think that just speaks a little bit to a RBBC.
Yeah, it just says maybe they will not gas up the Abdullah Express as I had hoped.
Do you feel a negative impression on Abdullah just from that one report?
I would say a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
not so much that I'm going to go in and change my rankings, but his.
Wait, it's not like you have him abnormally.
No, I don't have him
abnormally
very
high.
but it's just the Abdullah is one of those interesting running backs, like around that Melvin Gordon area. You're going to have to take him between 6 and 7 or so, and will it be a completely wasted pick?
Yeah.
It would take a lot.
That's why I take Gordon.
It takes a lot of things to go right for Abdullah to end up being a high fantasy producer. Not only does he have to play excellent, he has to play the best football he's ever played, but he also has to get more opportunity that he's not sure to have. And if both of those things don't happen, then he's not going to be worth that pick.
All right, sleeper alert here. Chargers second-year wide receiver Tyrell Williams has seen extra work with the first-team offense. We know that Stevie Johnson tore his meniscus. I think yesterday we just said he was carted off, but he was maybe you mentioned it. He did tear his meniscus. Williams jumped in with the first-team offense. He'd be competing with Dontrelle Inman.
Yeah.
Travis Benjamin should be, in that rotation, starting rotation. But Williams is 6'4". He's 204, 4.4 speed. Interesting.
That is
Caught one touchdown pass last year.
Well, he caught the 80-yard bomb in the last week of the season. That's just a guy who's 6'4" and can run at 4.43. That's
not common.
You're
That's
gonna see me.
interesting.
You're gonna see me do that on August 9th for the
Are you
combine.
6'4"?
No, I'm not.
He
I'm
is
like
204
6'3".
though.
Hey, watch out! I'm not 204 yet. I'm on my way. Hagen does. All right. I think that's it for the news. But pay attention to Tyrell Williams.
Yes, absolutely.
Just keep monitoring him because he could be like a last round grab. I
Sure.
remember like Kenny Stills was that a couple years ago. Somebody that you started hearing enough about, and you could just take him in the last round and just see what the first couple weeks look like.
Sure. So before we get into some running back rankings, we want to thank today's sponsor, Pristine Auction. We are talking about these guys all the time.
That's Antonio Brown.
They are the very best memorabilia site on the internet. If you jump on the YouTube, you can see our autograph, a completely authentic autograph from Antonio Brown, Mr. 8-4 up on the wall.
We got an email yesterday from somebody who, it was an amazing story. He actually wanted to get his father something extra special for this kind of a really big event, and his dad had always loved Lawrence Taylor. Went on to pristineauction.com, found an autographed Lawrence Taylor jersey, framed it, gave it to his dad as a gift. It was, and now it's hanging up as a main part of the house.
A better gift you can give than Pristine Auction gifts.
Yeah, and I just along those lines, I gave my dad a signed Fran Tarkenton authentic jersey for for Father's Day.
Yep.
So head over to Pristine Auction, PRISTINE auction.com. Make a free account. Tell them the footballers sent you.
Yeah, let them know. All right, one more thank you from us. We want to thank Blue Apron, another sponsor of today's show. You heard us talk about them a couple months ago. We all love Blue Apron.
Delicious.
They are absolutely the very best. For less than $10 a meal, they deliver seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. We get Blue Apron right now. It is like a family event at the house. We get the package. It's all fresh ingredients. We get to make it together, enjoy it together as a family. They're absolutely amazing. They have tons of variety. There are new recipes created weekly. You don't get them repeated ever during the year. You choose your meals. You can say if you don't want, seafood or something, or you do want it. Basically, they surprise you with these awesome meals based on what you want. Very flexible to customize them. Super easy. Step-by-step instructions with pictures. Things that people like me can understand and really enjoy. And so check out this week's menu and listen to this. You get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/ballers. That's really easy to remember there. blueapron.com/ballers. You will love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So don't wait. That's blueapron.com/ballers. Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
Running backs.
Oh, this is fun.
We're
Fun.
We're getting into the nitty-gritties.
Look,
The
I'm
top
lucky.
list of running backs is here already. This is football season.
Oh, I'm lucky I remember to turn like the recording devices on because we were already debating running backs before the show started. So I had to flip it on so we could get into this. And, really the point of this entire show, sure, you think it's to win your fantasy league. No, it's so that I can get on and record how right I'm going to be compared to these two guys across the desk from me, which is, it's amazing how many times I am opposed to both of you.
Yeah,
It's almost like you guys
know our
feel
stuff.
insecure about your predictions. Yeah. All right. This is our consensus top 10. If you want to see the actual breakdown of who we individually have, go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, click rankings, and you'll see a list with our head on top of it, a picture of our face, so you know who's right. My picture.
Our man Brooks actually tweeted us a few days ago and said, "Wow, he can't believe how much variation there is within our top 10." So this is our consensus, but a lot of times the guys in this list, they're not necessarily everyone's number one or everyone's number two. So we'll break that down as well as we go along.
Yeah, it's a good point. And look, we're not here to be talking heads that regurgitate the same information that everybody else gives you. We're also not here to be contrarian and just give random names so that we can look different. We're actually trying to get the right names. And so that's the goal. Find the right names, the right players that we think will be consistent. This is our consensus number one guy. I didn't know that he was our consensus number one until
It was
about
surprising.
5 minutes before the show. Because Jason had recently tweaked some of his running back rankings. I had made some adjustments. He's my number two.
He's my number 5.
He's
And
my number one.
And he's Mike's number one. But when you put him together with all our other guys, David Johnson.
Johnson.
Oh.
See now, because now I'm excited.
I know.
I'm excited
I
to
know.
talk about him, so the song just comes out.
Hey, he ended up number one on the consensus. He had a very dominant end to the season. There are a lot of different arguments for and against David Johnson. People will look to a limited full-time workload because of what he was in that offense to start the season. He returned kicks. Chris Johnson had a very dominant first 7-8 games. David Johnson over the last, during his 5 starts, he averaged 131 yards a game.
That's pretty good.
Not bad.
And some people say, he had a slight drop-off towards the end of the year, and then you go, well, no, he didn't. You look at the playoffs, and he owned in the playoffs. He was fantastic.
There are also those that want to throw a little shade on David Johnson, saying, okay, Chris Johnson's there, and he'll be involved, and he's going to steal carries away from David Johnson.
That matters.
It does matter, but the counter-argument to that is he started 5 games last year and finished the number 7 running back.
That's nuts. He finished the number 7 running back on the year despite only starting 5 times. That just means, if he starts 16 times this year, it's going to be, how does he not finish as a top 5 back?
Well,
Almost.
I'll tell you how.
Okay.
Jeremy Hill. Jeremy Hill would be the counter-argument to David Johnson. Jeremy
Sure.
Hill dominated in a very similar fashion, especially towards the end of that year, and we all came out and we said the exact same thing about Jeremy Hill. If he plays 16 games, how does he not put up blank, 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 and then he came out and didn't put up that?
But the big difference between those two is that, and we knew this going in with Jeremy Hill, is that David Johnson is a great pass-catching back. And that was how a lot of his fantasy, the reason he was number 7 last year was in major part because of the work in the passing game. Jeremy Hill doesn't do that. We already knew there was going to be a split there with Giovanni Bernard. And while there could be a split, it's not one of those where if the game script gets out of hand, now David Johnson has to be off the field the way that it sometimes could be with Jeremy Hill.
And I completely agree with that take. You're right about the difference, and that's what makes him more of a foundational, safer running back than maybe people think. Last year, of all running backs, he averaged the most touchdowns per receptions. He had 1 every 9. So he had 36 receptions last year for 457 and 4. He is a pass-catching back. That gives him a really nice baseline.
Yeah, and to me, it's all that stuff, and you just throw in the combination of an elite offense in the league under Bruce Arians. Look, going into the season, there's no reason to think that Arizona can't be a top 5 offense in the league again. They were, I believe, number 1 in yards, number 2 in points. And all the pieces are returning. The offensive line is even stronger this year. So if David Johnson gets the work that I expect him to get, then he's my number one running back. And the fears for Chris Johnson, look, I know there was the report of that just came out. No, it's where Arian said, well, it'll be game by game. We saw a completely unfiltered look at what Bruce Arians thinks of David Johnson, and that is he thinks he has
bell cow.
Bell cow, and that was after the first game of his rookie season. And so just seeing Arians talk about David Johnson with not putting on the face for the press, he loves him. He's the best running back on the team. Chris Johnson, for how good he was, just didn't catch any passes.
It's worth mentioning again in case it was missed, but so far in training camp, David Johnson has taken all the first team reps. I mean, that's the clearest indication that he is the guy they are planning to roll with. And it's only going to be if he completely stinks or gets hurt that things are going to change.
I would say there's another variable. I mean, if he wears down because he's getting more of a workload, that happens to younger running backs as well that aren't used to that. So that would be one of the arguments against him. I have him at 2. Jason has him at 5. Mike has him at number 1. He's our consensus number 1. Let's go to my number 1 guy right now, Todd Gurley. He's our consensus number 2. The things I like about Todd Gurley, if you compare him to David Johnson, is really revolves around both guys are extremely talented. I think Gurley will be involved in the passing game at a higher level this year. I forget what our water bet was. With
35.
35 receptions. I'm feeling great about that. He had 21 last year. Here's what I like about Todd Gurley. You talk about David Johnson, and he is a great piece of a great offense. Todd Gurley is the offense. Todd Gurley is the offense. And we saw this historically with Minnesota. When they had a team that wasn't necessarily an extremely talented team or a playoff-worthy team, Adrian Peterson was the offense. You are going to give the ball to Adrian Peterson a certain amount of times a game. Todd Gurley represents this really delicious mix of talent and consistent high-volume play. There's no one else to compete with him. There's no opportunity for him to lose carries in the backfield. And last year, double digits in all but 2 games. So I just love that as a foundational back. That might carry him to the top of the running back charts simply from a week-to-week consistency standpoint. Maybe not as many monstrous David Johnson-style games, but I love him.
Yeah, and Todd Gurley, I can agree with a lot of the comments. I just have my fears about the offense for the Rams. Can Todd Gurley really do that for an entire season? I mean, we talked about maybe David Johnson wears down. You can see where Todd Gurley came out of the gates just on fire, the best start for a rookie running back of all time when he came out and he had 4 straight 100-plus yard rushing performances. But after that, I mean, everything went way down, and the only thing that was saving him was he was getting in the end zone. And we've seen time and time again that as long as a running back, just like Jeremy Hill, for how bad Jeremy Hill was, he was a running back too because he was scoring touchdowns. Will those touchdowns for sure be there for Todd Gurley? And like these weird performances of week 12 and week 13 with 9 carries apiece, those are probably just outliers. But if you look at his game log, you see this wear down and towards the middle of the season. He kind of resurged towards the end. But I don't know if comparing Todd Gurley to Adrian Peterson is hard, because Adrian Peterson is a once-in-a-lifetime talent, Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame running back. Is Todd Gurley actually that guy?
Yeah, that's really the right question is he that guy? Because coming out of college, he was supposed to be that guy. He comes in first year, he sure looks like that guy in a lot of his games. And so you have to know, T-Rich looked great his first year as well. The offense, both Mike and I have Todd Gurley number 4.
Don't ever say that name again.
Which is still very high, but it is a concern. You look at, I mean, they didn't score, middle of the pack last year. They scored very low, the Los Angeles Rams or the St. Louis Rams last year. You're talking about a team that put up 280 points. That was 2 more points than the Cleveland Browns.
Whoa! But doesn't that speak more to Gurley being in? I mean, bottom of the barrel scoring. Now you have a transition, a really, really good defense. I just don't understand how that.
The reason
He put up a prolific fantasy season.
nobody is off of Gurley.
I know.
Lowest
I
we
know,
have him
I
is
know.
4.
And just because they're rated in a certain way doesn't mean you like them all. You just like some to perform a little bit better than the other one.
And so here's the deal for me is Gurley. I like him because he's a little bit safer of a pick because you know for sure he's the guy there. Like there's no world where he comes out and he's gonna get a complete running back by committee this year and he's gonna, you know what I mean? Like that's just not gonna happen. He is, like Andy said, their offense, and so I appreciate when I can grab a running back that I know is the guy. It's just too rare.
All right, number 3 on the consensus rankings, Jamaal Charles, coming back off an injury. Seen some video of him working out. He's on the PUP right now. What do we think about Jamaal Charles? Why is he so high on this list? Why aren't we more concerned about Jamaal Charles when the workload and Spencer Ware and Charkandrick West and the injury and blah, blah, blah?
Because Jamaal Charles is the best running back on that team. We've seen him come back from an ACL tear already. He came back in a completely dominant fashion, which the only reason that Charles post-ACL season isn't talked about more is because that was the Adrian Peterson year when he came back and ran for over 2,000 yards.
That's a good point.
So Charles just kind of got overshadowed.
But he had a good year.
He was dominant last year. In the first 4 games that he was fully healthy for the game, he was touching the ball 20 times a game. He was a focal point once again in the receiving game, which is where they kind of got away from Charles 2 years ago. I think they saw how ridiculous that was, and Andy Reid probably got tired of those press conferences where he's looking in the camera going, maybe I should have got the best player on my team the ball a little bit more.
That was a good impression.
Thank you. I can't remember what he sounds like. Maybe that's it. But Jamaal Charles, like Todd Gurley, Jamaal Charles is the focal point of the offense. And for what we saw of Gurley, Jamaal Charles is completely proven to be a dominant force in the NFL, averaging a lifetime average yards per carry over 5, which is, as we say on the show, bananas.
His lifetime average is not just high; it's the highest of all time by a mile with any running back that's over 1,000 yards. I saw a tweet out there. I don't remember much about that tweet now. It was several weeks ago, but it was comparing him with the all-time every running back that was over 1,000 yards, and he wasn't good. He was by a mile the best, and I think sometimes we forget how special Jamaal Charles is as a talent. Then you put him on a high on a team dedicated to running the ball, who has been a top scoring on the ground team. I mean, much has been made about the fact that they don't score to their wide receivers that much.
Has anything changed with Doug Peterson leaving?
No,
I don't think so, because it's always been Andy Reid's team. Andy Reid is the offensive mind.
All right, let's talk about Lamar Miller. He's our consensus number 4, which might surprise some people. They might have, been expecting to hear Adrian Peterson's name there, maybe Ezekiel Elliott. But we have Lamar Miller as our consensus number 4. Jason,
you're welcome.
Jason is responsible for this because he has him rated number what?
I have him number 2, and in fact, in a PPR setting, he is my number 1 running back. And
Hot takes.
It's one of those things where I see it and I go, oh man, should I change this? But I believe it. I look at the numbers that I've statted him out with, and
give us the case for Lamar Miller.
So here's the case for Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller, and you know me. I want safety in the first round. I'm looking for a guy that's safe. And while there is a very big unknown with him switching teams, what we do know is that he has been one of the most efficient runners and efficient fantasy producers in the NFL over the last few seasons. He's finished as a top 12 running back 2 years in a row, despite the fact that he never gets carries. Last year, he only had 3 games of more than 16 carries. And he was upset at that. He said, I want the ball. He said, when I hit free agency, I'm going to go where I can be the man. And he backed that up by going to the Texans, who the last 2 years have been in the top 5 for rushing attempts. In fact, the Texans running backs averaged 26.1 carries per game. That was the second highest in the league. And it's not like there's a bunch of talent behind him that's really there going to take that
Alfred
load.
Blue?
I apologize, Mr.
How
Blue.
How dare you?
So here's the deal. You have an extremely efficient runner who's prolific in the passing game, who is going to a team that has just given him a big contract, that loves to run the ball, loves to involve their running backs. I don't see how he fails minus injury.
It's a compelling argument. I mean, it all comes down to whether what we foresee for him, volume-wise, comes to fruition. That being said, very productive fantasy seasons without the volume before, and a team that should have a really good defense, a quarterback that should protect the ball. A lot of good arguments for Lamar Miller. Let's move.
I was just going to say I buy into Lamar Miller. I just want the counter argument is you've had several coaching staffs, who have refused to give Lamar Miller the ball a bulk of the time. So there's just there's something that we don't know about for Lamar Miller.
It's Ryan Tannehill. I'm just throwing it out there. I think coaching staffs have been trying to get Ryan Tannehill
It's very
going.
possible. Yeah.
It's not
All right,
Lamar
Adrian Peterson is our consensus number 5. Adrian Peterson, number 5. Last season, 327 carries, 1,485 yards, and 11 touchdowns. That's all.
He is my number 1. This is so.
He's your number 1. He was the number 2 in the league last year with yards after contact with 700 plus. He's got a strained hamstring right now, but I don't think any of us are very concerned about Adrian Peterson and his recovery situation. Let me ask this question really quickly, and you guys can talk about AP the rest of the time. Is Jerick McKinnon a handcuff or a handcuff for Adrian Peterson?
Yeah, I feel like that, and that comes up on Twitter a lot, and I'm very torn on McKinnon. I like him. I like where the things are trending for him. At the end of the season, they finally said, hey, maybe this freak athlete who is off the charts for the spark boards, maybe we should get him the ball in space. So they started involving him in the passing game. It remains to be seen for me, because when the opportunity was there for the Vikings to say, hey, let's see what McKinnon can do, they gave it to Matt Asiata.
Yeah, and he's still around.
Yeah. he's still lumbering around.
It's pretty.
Hey, Joik, how you doing over there?
It's pretty easy to talk about Adrian Peterson, right? Because we already know what you have.
Yep.
You already know you have one of the best running backs in the league, a top fantasy producer, with the only caveat being he will at some point fall off. Will this be the year or not? When you're making that pick, because it's going to take a high pick to get him, you're deciding, do I want to take the risk that he is not going to fall off? Because I don't think there's an in-between. I don't think he's going to come out and be mediocre. He's going to fall off like, the Shaun Alexanders, or like every running back eventually does, where it's like, oh, man, he doesn't look the same. He's slow to the hole. He's lost that step, and now every NFL, backer can tackle the guy. Or he's Adrian Peterson. I believe he's still going to be Adrian Peterson.
I believe he will be as well. And the very plus for Adrian Peterson, the Minnesota defense is great. It is a very, very strong unit, which is only going to help Peterson because he's the focal point of the offense. At least until this point, they have said, Teddy Bridgewater, you are a game manager for us.
And he wants to be the focal point, and he will force the staff to make him the focal point.
Weird question. Does he lose anything by going into a dome?
No.
He's played in a dome his entire career.
Then no.
I mean, except for last year, they were in the College Stadium, but they played in the Metrodome.
That's right. I forgot. I just remember last year and all the winter.
All right, we're gonna get through 2 more guys on today's show at least, and then we'll get into some discussion.
That's a very good point.
On the next show of the running backs. LeSean McCoy is our consensus number 6. Again, this might surprise people that he's not
rising.
Somebody else. I believe he belongs here. Reggie Bush was just signed by the Bills, which is a great, great sign for LeSean McCoy. If we remember Reggie Bush's production levels in his limited work last year in San Francisco, that is an insurance/return guy, so don't worry about Reggie Bush. LeSean McCoy, 203 carries, 895 yards, only 3 touchdowns on the ground last season, did catch 32 passes in limited work for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
The story for LeSean McCoy was injury last year.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a severe hamstring strain during training camp. You saw when he started the season, he was not completely himself. He re-aggravated it, and then he had to miss a couple games. When he came back and he was fully healthy, 8 straight double-digit fantasy games in standard. This was LeSean McCoy in standard, putting up double digits every single week before he finally went out to a season-ending injury.
Yeah, when we talk about running backs, opportunity I think is more important than talent, but talent comes into play too. And there's not much more that you would want than what you have in LeSean McCoy. He's not 30. I know he's a little bit older. He's got some wear on the wheels. He's 28 and he's had a lot of work. But he didn't look like he slowed down to me last year when I was watching anything. And now he's on a team that runs the ball pretty much the most in the NFL.
Look, I was going to bring it up.
The ball.
Inside Edge, this number from Inside Edge, 48.4% of plays last year. Number 1 in the league, they ran the ball.
Exactly. And so you've got a guy who is the clear bell cow, running, passing, right now for the team that runs the most, who has done it a lot, who is talented. He's 28 years old, and I expect his draft position to go up, but right now he's at the back of the second.
But Jason.
Oh!
Oh my goodness.
What about Carlos Williams?
Thank you, weird voice of public opinion. Carlos Williams.
You've never talked to the public. Why have you never addressed the public before?
Sometimes I address my own public. The reality is Carlos Williams, I mean, there's reports that he might not make the team, which he'll make the team.
That's poppycock.
But he's come in overweight. He's missing the first 4 games. He's in the doghouse. And I do expect by the end of the season he might get involved. But he was involved last year. It's not like he was not involved while LeSean McCoy was still producing good fantasy numbers. And this coming year, I think he'll be less involved than he was last year.
Yeah.
Well, certainly for 4 games.
Well, certainly.
It's funny because I think Tyrell Taylor averaged the most rushing yards per game of any quarterback last year.
And that was the final thing I was going to throw in. For fantasy purposes, you love when there's a running quarterback. Just ask old Alf Morris what happens when your quarterback is known to run.
Tough on the linebackers. When you have 2 guys, you have to
you gotta pick who you're going after.
A lot of the times you do. So, all right. Ezekiel Elliott is where we're going to end today's show. We're going to go 8 through 15 on the next running back ranking show. Ezekiel Elliott, we don't get to spew out a bunch of numbers from last season. The only one that really matters is number 4 because that's where he went in the NFL draft this season. To the Dallas Cowboys, to a very powerful offensive line, to an opportunity that is probably the best any rookie could ever imagine coming out of college, to Dez Bryant and Tony Romo's offense, that they're healthy now. Talk to me. Why is Ezekiel Elliott at number 7? Let me see where we have him together.
I can tell you right now. I actually have him.
You have him at 3?
At number 3.
That's
He's my number 3 running back on the board.
And
Andy,
I have him at number 5.
So it's my fault that he's down this far.
Yeah, Andy, you've got him at 11.
I do.
For me, after Le'Veon Bell went out, it's just more and more clear that the top running backs all have a lot of questions. I mean, Lamar Miller switches teams. Adrian Peterson's older. We've talked about all of these things. Everybody has their question marks. And so that, to me, makes the risk of a rookie a little bit less risky. So that's why he's risen, because his upside is extremely high.
It's extraordinary. It's incredible. And he can catch the ball. He's at 11 for me right now. He will not be there because I'm going to move him ahead of Mark Ingram. I'm fading a little bit on Ingram and his upside.
Spoiler alerts.
Yeah, I know.
For the next
show. We'll get into it. But look, he could absolutely end the year number 1. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott is in the category of guys that, now that Le'Veon Bell has been suspended, now that he is that tier 1 all by himself is gone, it could be Ezekiel Elliott. I don't have anybody. If somebody wants to draft him because of that upside, I've got no problem with it. Not at all. I don't think Mark Ingram has the potential to be the number 1 back in fantasy football. I think Ezekiel Elliott does. And if you want that as part of the equation for who you have on your team, I got no problem with it. I'm tempering the expectations because we haven't seen it yet, and because they do have some other guys that will be involved that were effective. I know Walk DMC is there.
Yeah, gimpy arm, chicken wing, Darren McFadden right now.
DMC.
and Alf. They didn't go and sign Alf to do nothing.
Right. So there are other pieces, and just because the other guys at the top of this list, I have more confidence in taking them, putting them out there than Ezekiel Elliott. That's why I go that way. If you're in a dynasty league, you'd be crazy not to have Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, I've brought this up before, and granted I am the highest on Ezekiel Elliott, but a couple of years ago, Ryan Matthews was coming into the perfect situation, replacing LaDainian Tomlinson, highly touted out of college, was the highest drafted rookie running back we've seen since then, and that was many years ago, and he came out and completely flopped. and he was a can't-miss prospect. So I do not expect Ezekiel Elliott to flop, but we have to make sure that nobody is of the mind that it can't happen, because that's foolish.
Any other thoughts on Ezekiel Elliott, Mike? Okay.
No,
so
I'm fully confident in taking him. And even I have Todd Gurley ranked ahead of him, but if I'm in the back of the first round and I'm gonna go running back and I'm looking at the decision of Gurley and Elliott, I think that would be extremely difficult for me, and I might go Elliott in that situation just based off of the upside that we're talking about.
All right. Well, if you want to see exactly the numbers we have these guys projected for, you can check out the Ultimate Draft Kit. This is the culmination of months of our off-season time as we put together this huge draft kit with tons of videos with all of our premier rankings, sleepers, busts, breakout, stuff we break down on the show. But you can dive deeper with the Ultimate Draft Kit at ultimatedraftkit.com. We will go through. We're going to have a mailbag show this week, so if you have questions for the show, go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Click Submit a Question. We're going to take a bunch of those, answer them on the show this week. We like answering them on Twitter at the FF Ballers as well. And we're going to get into more of the running backs, more position breakdowns, and a lot of the big pieces that you need to know as you prepare for your fantasy drafts in 2016. So I'm very excited.
Yep.
And
tomorrow's
these guys
gonna
are as well.
Tomorrow's going to be a great show. We'll follow up with more running backs this week. And don't forget, go to fantasyjocks.com for all your
promo code BALLERS
special championship needs.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.